Hey, baby. You feeling alright? You seem quieter than usual. You feeling small? Okay. Well, given that you're feeling small, how would you feel about a bedtime story? Yeah. Well, naturally, we could gotta go with the classic Winnie the Pooh. Of course, I have the book. Specifically, the honey tree. Do you know who you're talking to? Yeah, we can read it. Let's get you curled up in bed. And we'll lay back and relax. And I'll open up. Yes, it's on my Kindle. For exact occasions like this. For when you were little. And littles need a bedtime story. Yes, I know you would do the same for me. And that's what makes this relationship work. Now can you please lay down so we can read the story? It is getting way too late for a little one like you to be up. Thank you. And you got your friend? You do? Okay. Alright. Well then, shall we? Once upon a time, a very long time ago now, about last Friday, Winnie the Pooh lived in the forest all by himself under the name of Sanders. One day, when he was out walking, he came to an open place in the middle of the forest. In the middle of this place was a large oak tree, and from the top of the tree there came a loud buzzing noise. Winnie the Pooh sat down at the foot of the tree, put his head between his paws, and began to think. First of all, he said to himself, that buzzing noise means something. You don't get buzzing noise like that, just buzzing and buzzing, without it meaning something. There's a buzzing noise, someone's making a buzzing noise, and the only reason for making a buzzing noise that I know of is because you're a bee. Then he thought another long time, and then said, and the only reason for being a bee that I know of is making honey. And then he got up and said, and the only reason for making honey is so that I can eat it. So he began to climb the tree. He climbed and climbed and he climbed and he climbed. And as he climbed, he sang a little song to himself. It went like this. Isn't it funny how a bear likes honey? Buzz, 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 I wonder why he does. Then he climbed a little further and a little further, and then just a little further by the time he had thought of another song. It's a very funny thought that if bears were bees, they'd build their nests at the bottom of trees. And that being so, if the bees were bears, shouldn't have to climb up all these stairs. He was getting rather tired by this time, so that's why he sang a complaining song. He was nearly there now, and if he just stood on that branch, crack! Oh, help! said Pooh, as he dropped 10 feet from the branch below him. If only I hadn't, he said, as he bounced 20 feet onto the next branch. You see what I meant to do, he explained, as he turned head over heels and crashed onto another branch 30 feet below. What I meant to do... Of course, it was rather, he admitted, as he slithered very quickly through the next 6 branches. It all comes, I suppose, he decided, as he said goodbye to the last branch, spun around 3 times, and flew gracefully into a gorse bush. It all comes of liking honey so much. Oh, help! He crawled out of the gorse bush, brushed the prickles from his nose, and began to think again. And the first person he thought of was Christopher Robin. So Winnie the Pooh went around to his friend Christopher Robin, who lived behind a green door in another part of the forest. Good morning, Christopher Robin, he said. Good morning, Winnie the Pooh, said you. I wonder if you've got such a thing as a balloon about you. A balloon? Yes, I just said to myself coming along, I wonder if Christopher Robin has such a thing as a balloon about him. I just said it to myself, thinking of balloons and wondering, what do you want a balloon for? You said. Winnie the Pooh looked around to see that nobody was listening, put his paw in his mouth, and said in a deep whisper, Honey. But you don't get honey with balloons. I do, said Pooh. Well, it just happened that you had been to the party that day at the house of your friend Piglet, and you had balloons at the party. You had a big green balloon, and one of Rabbit's relations had a big blue one, and had left it behind, being really too young to go to a party and all. And so you had brought the green one and the blue one home with you. Which one would you like? Asked Pooh. He put his head between his paws and thought very carefully. It's like this, he said. When you go after honey with a balloon, the great thing is to not let the bees know you're coming. Now, if you have a green balloon, they might think you were only part of the tree and not notice you. If you have a blue balloon, they might think you were only part of the sky and not notice you. And the question is, which is most likely? Wouldn't they notice you underneath the balloon? You asked. They might, or they might not, said Winnie the Pooh. You can never tell with bees. He thought for a moment and said, I shall try to look like a small black cloud. That will deceive them. Then you had better have the blue balloon, you said, and so it was decided. Well, you both went on with the blue balloon, and you took your gun with you, just in case, as you always did. And Winnie the Pooh went to a very muddy place that he knew of, and rolled until he was black all over. And then, when the balloon was blown up as big, and you and Pooh were both holding onto the string, you let go suddenly, and Pooh Bear floated gracefully into the sky and stayed there, level with the top of the tree and about 20 feet from it. Hooray! You shouted. Isn't that fine? Shouted Winnie the Pooh down to you. What do I look like? You look like a bear holding on to a balloon, you said. Not, said Pooh anxiously, not like a small black cloud in the sky. Not very much. Well, perhaps from up here it looks different. And as I say, you can never tell with bees. There was no wind to blow him near the tree, so there he stayed. He could see the honey, he could smell the honey, but he couldn't quite reach the honey. After a little while he called down to you. Christopher Robin, he said in a loud whisper. Hello? I think the bees suspect something. What sort of thing? I don't know, but something tells me they're suspicious. Perhaps they think you're after their honey. It may be that. You can never tell with bees. There was another little silence, and then he called down to you again. Christopher Robin? Yes? Have you an umbrella in your house? I think so. I wish you would bring it out here and walk up and down with it, and look at me every now and then, and say, it looks like rain. I think if you do that, it could help the depiction which we are practicing on these bees. Well, you laughed at yourself. Silly old bear. But you didn't say it out loud because you were so fond of him, and you went home for your umbrella. Oh, there you are, called down Winnie the Pooh, as soon as you got back up from the tree. up to the tree. I was beginning to get anxious. I have discovered that the bees are now definitely suspicious. Shall I put my umbrella up? He said. Yes, but wait a moment. We must be practical. The important bee to deceive is the queen bee. Can you see which is the queen bee from down there? No. A pity. Well, now if you walk up and down with your umbrella, say, it looks like rain. I shall do what I can by singing a little cloud song, such as a cloud might sing. Go. So while you were walking up and down, wondering if it would rain, Winnie the Pooh sang this song. How sweet to be a cloud floating in the blue. Every little cloud always sings aloud. How sweet to be a cloud floating in the blue. Makes him very proud to be a little cloud. The bees were buzzing as suspiciously as ever. Some of them, indeed, left their nest and flew all around the cloud as it began the second verse of the song, and one bee sat down on the nose of the cloud for a moment and then got up again. Christopher, ow! Robin? Called out the cloud. Yes? I have just been thinking, and I have come to a very important decision. These are the wrong sort of bees, are they? Quite the wrong sort. So I should think they would make the wrong kind of honey, shouldn't you? Would they? Yes, so I think I shall come down. How? Winnie the Pooh hadn't thought of that. If he let go of the string, he would fall, bump, and he didn't like the idea of that. So he thought for a long time, and then he said, Christopher Robin, you must shoot the balloon with your gun. Have you got your gun? Of course I have. But if I do that, it will spoil the balloon, you said. But if you don't, said Pooh, I shall have to let go, and that would spoil me. When you put it like this, you saw how it was, and you aimed very carefully at the balloon and fired. Ow, said Pooh. Did I miss? You didn't exactly miss, said Pooh, but you missed the balloon. So sorry, you said, and you fired again, and this time you hit the balloon, and the air came out slowly, and Winnie the Pooh floated to the ground. But his arms were so stiff from holding onto the string of the balloon all that time, that they stayed straight up in the air for more than a week, and whenever a fly came by and settled on his nose, he had to blow it off. And I think, but I am not sure, that is why he was always called Pooh. Would you look at that? I already dozed off. Good night, my love. I will see you in the morning.